is your desire to actually be loved stronger than your desire to be yourself? And this is often a situation that we all find ourselves in. In fact, I feel like this is one of the biggest conflict that a lot of us have internally in our head, where we don't know what to prioritize. Should we prioritize authenticity or should we prioritize attachment? And this episode is all about authenticity versus attachment. If you're new here, I am Vesh, and this is a place where we speak about everything from healing your traumas, self-love, self-esteem, confidence, and as a result of which, building your best life. If you want to be loved, you have to be yourself. But from a very young age, we have been conditioned that if we are ourselves, if we are messy, if we act stupid, if we are needy, we won't be accepted, we won't be loved. As a child, when we cry, as a child, when we are throwing tantrums because we are hurt, that is often met by disapproval from our parents. And this causes a thought process in our young brains that we cannot be ourselves, we cannot express our emotions because we are not getting emotional validation even from our parents in the very first place. So subconsciously we learn that if we are ourselves, we will not be approved and we won't be loved by our parents. And as a child, your survival depends on your caregivers. Your survival depends on your parents. What option do you have but to repress your feelings? What option do you have but to repress your emotions? And this becomes a part of your personality. Even when you grow up, you are actually unable to get rid of this habit where you're constantly hiding your true self in a fear that, it would be met by disapproval by your friends or even your romantic partner for that matter. So Jordan B. Peterson, he had quoted, and let me read this out. An angry child should sit by himself until he calms down. Then he should be allowed to return to normal life. That means the child wins instead of his anger. The rule is, come be with us as soon as you can behave properly. This is a very good deal for child, parents, and society. And who am I to go against what Jordan B. Peterson says? But I don't feel this is the right approach, and also a lot of psychologists in recent times have gone against this thought process that you have to push down a child's emotion, because in a way you're being taught that your emotion does not matter, what your feelings are truly does not matter. And when you have been treated this way, you actually believe that you are not loved for who you are, but you are loved for how you behave, and your inherent worthiness actually comes from how you behave, but not for the mere existence of who you are. Later on, we even learn that being vulnerable, being emotional, being our authentic self sometimes even drives people away, especially when it comes to romantic prospects. So in a way, our brain gets an ultimatum that either you can be yourself or either you can be loved. And when we meet someone new, when we are getting to know someone else, we never show our true selves because we are in a way afraid that, if that other person gets to know the truest, rawest version of us, they might not even like us. And this brings me back to the question, do you like yourself? When you haven't approved of yourself, when you haven't truly accepted yourself for the person you are, how do you expect someone else to approve of you? And how long are you going to keep running away from the true version of you? And when we get into relationships or when we are even in the dating phase, we often compromise our own needs and wants because in a way our survival instincts kick in and we start prioritizing attachment over authenticity. For how long can you actually hide your true self, hide your own emotions, hide your needs and wants from the person in front of you? Repressing our emotions can only go so long. After a point, you would start feeling uncomfortable, you would start feeling anxious. And this is where your attachment style also gets kicked in. If you have an anxious attachment style, you will actually start projecting your fears onto your partner. If you have an avoidant attachment style, you will start distancing yourself from your partner. And in both cases, you are fearing abandonment. And why do you fear abandonment? Because you don't know what your worth is, because you don't know how valuable you are. So you are often in this thought process that other people are going to end up abandoning you. And when you repress your emotions, this ends up in you developing resentment, the relationship falls apart, and then we end up missing the basic need for belonging, and then we go search for someone else. It's like season 2 all over again. In most cases, when you're prioritizing attachment, you are actually choosing someone else and the attachment over you. And this is not to say that, if you cannot have healthy attachments, but the first thing that you need to have is a relationship with yourself. And this is also not me saying that you have to heal yourself and only then get into a relationship. But you have to have some relationship with yourself where you see yourself, where you love yourself and you acknowledge yourself. The way you treat yourself is exactly how other people are going to treat you. Which is why you probably even noticed in your life other people reflect back to you the assumptions that you have about yourself. And this also contributes in your thoughts and emotions, creating your reality and you attracting people towards yourself who are probably in the same frequency as you. Most of our tensions and frustration stems from our compulsive need to act like someone who we are not. This is also the case when you end up developing nice people syndrome, being a nice girl or being a nice boy. And overly nice people often end up prioritizing other people's needs over their own needs. And there's a book called The Myth of Normal by Dr. Gabor Mate, in which he clearly states it's the overly nice people who end up developing chronic physical illness over a long period of time, such as autoimmune diseases and even cardiovascular diseases for that matter of fact. Your niceness and your selflessness is actually a very toxic habit that you have. In a way, you think you are selfless. But also the thought process that goes behind that is you feel if you are selfless, you would be loved by other people and you would be accepted by other people. So if you think about that, isn't that a very selfish thought? At the end of the day. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you wanting to belong or wanting to be accepted by someone else, but the fact that you are justifying that by saying it's a very selfless thing to put other people's needs before your own needs is a very selfish thing, in fact. And in the end, you do want love. And that's a very basic human need. That's a very basic human want, for that matter of fact. Having a compulsive concern for other people is also having a rigid responsibility where you feel you have a duty towards other people. But you need to realize you also have a duty towards yourself. You also have a duty towards your mental health and your well-being. And what happens in this case is you generally lack a self-protective mechanism and you often end up feeling you are responsible for what other people feel. Other people's feeling is not your responsibility. Your feelings are your responsibility. But that's again not to say that go around and be ruthless and be rude to other people. No. But be kind to yourself too. You are walking around with the thought process that you cannot disappoint anyone in your life. And that's not true. There are going to be times where you will disappoint someone else because you chose to put yourself before that other person. Now, probably over the short term, this might cause some tension between the two of you, but over the long run, only good things can come out of it. But on the other side, if you compromise your needs for someone else, over the short term, you can save the relationship, but over the long term, you would end up developing resentment towards the other person. But the problem is these self-denying behaviors are often justified and glorified in the society because the society always tells you to be a nice person, to be a very kind person. But this is the way you're going to be taken advantage of as well. If you want to continue doing that, you're free to do that. But I am not someone who does that because in my life, given all the things I have gone through, I have come to realization that no one has my back the way I do. And the reason that you became this way, you became so nice, you became so selfless is because growing up, you did not have an environment around you that supported your gut feelings, that supported your intuition. And your feeling for belonging, survival, and getting love kicked in, and that became your unconscious primary coping mechanism. You end up pushing down all your feelings and emotions just for the sake of you wanting to still be in that environment. But also at the same time, you cannot blame someone else. There's no point in blaming your parents. After all, they were also going through their own lives. They probably have the same kind of traumas. And how would they have known to treat you better? They were also walking through the darkness, stumbling and falling without having any idea how to actually be a parent. But what has happened, and there's no point blaming them, and there's no point, shaming someone as well for what has happened. In fact, it's your responsibility right now to reparent yourself and make sure that you are there for yourself, that you are loving yourself. And if you want to get coached by me when it comes to developing self-love, developing self-esteem, setting up healthy boundaries for yourself, you would find all the link in the description box below. And this habit by parents where they're actually repressing their kids' emotion is so common in society these days. Think about how many times you have actually seen someone else do that to their kids. Just walking on the road, you would probably see, parents shutting their kids down instead of, just soothing them, instead of just probably hugging them and telling them it's okay, this is going to pass. But instead, what do? We tell them to shut up and let's go. But no one has the education of what it does to you when you grow up, what it does to you in your adult life. You have learned that inauthenticity is the only way you're going to be accepted and you're going to be loved. And this is why you find it so hard to say no to other people and set boundaries for yourself, because subconsciously you fear the loss of connection. And you have that deep fear that you are never going to be loved. And in this cycle, you start prioritizing external validation over internal validation, and you start taking other people's aspirations as your own aspirations, and all the boundaries are getting merged into each other. And this is something that often ends up happening in a romantic connection. And as a child, when your emotional needs were not being met, your little brain could have never comprehended that, it's my parents' fault. Children are narcissistic in their behavior. So whatever happens to them, they internalize it and they feel that it's their fault. If your parents are scolding you, if your parents are not loving you enough, you feel there's something inherently wrong within you. And this leads to you taking up the position or taking up the job of you having to do anything it takes to win your parents' love and approval. So since childhood, you have been in this habit of winning someone else's approval. So why would you not do it in your adult life as well? The very existence of our being is our need to be loved. Everything comes after that. But if we don't get love in our life, that's where our suffering starts. The basis of all human suffering is the lack of love. There was a thought that was coined by Ernest Becker. He was an American author, and he said that we have two motives as humans for our existence. One is the need to surrender yourself to the whole of nature and lay down your very existence and believe that there is a higher meaning for that. And the second motive is for you to feel that you are some kind of a heroic personality. In a way, we want to be part of something that's bigger, larger than us, which gives us a sense of meaning, and at the same time, we also want to be ourselves. And due to which your brain is always in conflict mode. Whether should you be nice and contribute to a bigger purpose or a bigger reason or a bigger meaning than you, or should you just be your authentic self? And one thing we need to start understanding is to love yourself is to be true to yourself and true to your own needs. The basis of self-love is accepting who you are for the person you are. The basis of self-love is not judging your wants and not judging your needs. Instead of being in a constant struggle every single day to see if the other person in front of you is okay, look at yourself and first ask yourself, are you okay? I have developed this habit in my life where before I ask someone else, are they okay? I want to ask myself, am I okay, Vesh? Are you okay? And once I feel I am okay, then I will start taking care of other people. But I am never going to do that at the cost of myself. And even though on the outside it looks very selfish to be doing this, let me tell you one thing, this is the basis for healthy long-term relationships and healthy long-term attachment, where two people are coming together, you have the best interest of each other at your heart, but you are still respecting each other's boundaries and for the real individual that you are at the very core of your existence. The question you need to be asking yourself is, do you want a temporary connection which is based upon inauthenticity, or do you want something that's more solid and more permanent, even though that means that probably in the beginning there might be some roadblocks that you both have to overcome together. And the society has romanticized romantic relationships so much that we kind of feel that being alone is to be unworthy of love. Being alone means there is something that's inherently wrong within us. But is that the ultimate truth? Sometimes you will have to protect your peace over being in a relationship, over trying to make an attachment work. And how much of our societal system is based on a collective pathology, which is actually based on a lot of unresolved survival mechanisms. The fact that you have grown up this way and you are inauthentic to yourself is not a choice that you had. But going forward, you have that choice to be authentic to yourself, to stand your ground, and to be true to yourself, your feelings, your emotions. Many of the personality traits that we have come to believe is us and we take pride in often are a result of all the scars of where we actually lost connection to ourselves. And to rebuild that connection to yourself, you have to start engaging in compassion. You are compassionate to other people around you, but when are you going to start becoming compassionate to yourself? Self-compassion is where you honor your feelings and you genuinely listen to your gut feelings. We all as human beings, we have amazing intuition and we have great gut feeling. We know what's right, we know what's wrong. But when we are put in situations in front of other people, it's our coping mechanisms and our ego that makes us do things which is not good for us. And you have to make a conscious choice of deciding to reconnect with that intuition and reconnect with that gut feeling that you are born with. Your higher self knows what's best for you, but your ego comes in between with a lot of fear mindset. And you need to ask yourself, when are you going to start showing yourself grace? You have to truly shape your life from a very deep knowing of who you are as a person. What do you like? What do you dislike? What are your deal breakers? What are your non negotiables? How do you want to be loved? How do you want to be accepted by other people? What are the things you're going to say no to? And when is it time for you to walk away? When you know all these things about yourself, you truly develop that sense of confidence in who you are. And this is where you start also building your sense of worthiness, which also leads to you building your self esteem. This also means that you start honoring that little girl or the little boy who got the message when they were growing up that their emotions did not matter, that their feelings did not matter. And it's your duty to honor that younger version of you and tell yourself that what you feel matters in this world. You are the main character in your story, and unless you believe that, unless you accept that, you're always going to let other people walk all over you. Simultaneously, what this also means, you enter into a relationship by being your true self. And if that person in front of you is not ready to accept you for who you are ready to bear the loss of that connection. You are ready to bear the loss of that attachment, because wouldn't you rather lose that connection in the very beginning because they cannot accept you for who you are, rather than losing it way later in time? Because that is going to be much more painful, considering all the memories you guys have probably even created, and then there starts a constant struggle where both of you are trying to come together and make your best to make a relationship work. Because the very foundation of the relationship wasn't strong. When you are in a relationship, you both need to be wanting the best for each other, and you also need to let the other person breathe and be their real selves. As much as you want someone else to hold space for you and accept you for the real person that you are, you have to also show up in the same way and do that for the other person in front of you, where you guys are creating a space where both of you can show up as the authentic version of yourself, which then leads to you creating healthy connection which lasts forever. You also have to be open when it comes to having real conversation and communication, but also at the same time holding each other accountable. Just because you're authentic doesn't mean that you have to hurt the other person also in front of you. Sometimes in relationships, when two people come together, you have to compromise, but you can arrive at that by voicing out your real opinions and by voicing out your real needs and mutually coming into a common ground to build that secure foundation. It isn't such a lie that the only way you can truly be loved is only if you are truly yourself. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.